There's a quiet kind of fatigue that sets in, not in your body but in your spirit, after visiting certain people. You walk in feeling fine, maybe even hopeful for some connection, and yet you leave with a weight you can't quite name. If you've ever had that experience, know this: you're not alone. After the age of 65, every hour of peace matters more than ever, and the people you surround yourself with can either protect that peace or quietly steal it away. In this video, we'll gently uncover 5 types of individuals who may seem familiar, even harmless, but whose presence might be quietly draining your joy, your energy, or your clarity of mind. This isn't about judging others. It's about choosing emotional well-being in your later years and realizing that boundaries, once seen as harsh, are actually acts of love for yourself. I'll also be sharing a story of my own, and I invite you to do the same in the comments below. Type "I'm here for peace" if you felt this too. And if this message resonates with your journey, please subscribe and stay with me, because what we'll explore next may just bring more peace into the years that matter most. There's a subtle kind of heaviness that settles in when you've spent time with someone who only speaks through the language of complaint. At first it may seem harmless. They talk about a sore back, the cost of groceries, the way things have changed, or how their children never call. You sit there, nodding gently, listening out of habit or politeness, thinking you're just being a good friend. But as the minutes pass, something within you begins to shift. Your shoulders tighten, your mind feels foggy, and by the time you walk back to your car or close the front door behind you, you realize you're not just tired, you're emotionally drained, even though nothing was said directly to you. That is the invisible toll of spending time with someone whose world is painted in gray, no matter how bright the sky may be that day. What makes this kind of presence so difficult to recognize at first is that it doesn't arrive with yelling or conflict. It comes dressed in familiarity. Often the chronic complainer is someone you've known for years, maybe a former co-worker, a neighbor, or even a cousin who calls often. You meet them at the senior center, or they invite you over for coffee, and everything starts off light. But slowly, the conversation slips into a steady rhythm of what's gone wrong. The doctor's visit that didn't go well, how the government is failing, how the family doesn't care, or how nothing is like it used to be. It feels like a gentle drizzle at first, but over time it soaks through your spirit. After 65, your mental clarity and emotional health are not luxuries. They're vital. Many people assume aging is only about taking care of the body, watching blood pressure, cholesterol, and joint pain. But protecting your inner world, your energy, your sense of optimism matters just as much, perhaps even more. Because no matter how carefully you monitor your health, if you constantly spend time absorbing someone else's pain, hopelessness, or refusal to see anything good, it begins to cloud your own view of life. And what's most concerning is that it doesn't happen all at once. It's a slow erosion of joy, like a leak in a quiet corner of your house you didn't notice until the damage had already spread. This doesn't mean you need to turn your back on people going through hardship. Everyone struggles. Everyone has moments when they need to talk. But there's a difference between someone who wants to get better and someone who doesn't want solutions at all. Only sympathy. The chronic complainer rarely asks questions about you. They resist positivity. They find a way to turn good news into another example of how things are unfair. And after a while it becomes clear. They're not just sharing their burden, they're quietly handing it to you, and you, out of kindness, habit, or fatigue, keep carrying it. But the truth is, you don't have to. After all the years you've spent helping others, showing up, being strong, being patient, this is the time in life to protect your peace without guilt. Just like you wouldn't eat something that poisons your body, you don't have to stay in conversations that poison your spirit. You can choose peace because you've earned it, and because no one else will protect your energy the way you can. Sometimes, the people who take the most from us don't raise their voice, don't ask for much all at once, and don't seem unkind on the surface. They just quietly expect more than we realize we're giving. If you've ever left someone's home feeling strangely obligated or emotionally cornered, even though the visit seemed polite, you may have been with someone who doesn't want your company. They want your usefulness. And the older we get, the easier it is for these patterns to slip in unnoticed, because many of us were raised to be helpful, dependable, and always available when needed. But there comes a time when we must ask, at what cost? It often begins with something small. A ride to the store, help moving a chair, advice on something they could have Googled. You offer your time without hesitation, thinking you're simply being supportive. But soon there's a pattern. They don't call to check in unless they need something. They don't ask how you're doing. They rarely make space to listen or meet you where you are. Instead, your presence becomes a transaction, your kindness quietly converted into currency. It may be a grown relative who only visits when their internet is down, or a neighbor who remembers you only when they need a ride to the doctor, or someone to pick up a prescription. They flatter you when they need something, say you're the only one who understands, and make you feel like the hero of their story, until the moment you say no. And that's the moment the truth appears. Because a true friend may be disappointed when you can't help, but they'll understand. A manipulative user, on the other hand, will guilt you, pressure you, or act wounded to get their way. They may not say it outright, but their tone changes. Their warmth vanishes, and suddenly you feel like the bad guy simply for protecting your own time or energy. That's not love. That's control wearing the mask of closeness. The truth is, many seniors find themselves in this kind of dynamic without realizing it. In retirement or older age, when our schedules feel more open, some people assume we're endlessly available. And out of habit or fear of conflict, we say yes, even when our bodies say no, even when our minds are tired, even when our hearts wish for quiet. But you are not on call for anyone else's convenience. Your time is no less precious because you're no longer working. Your emotional bandwidth is no less important because you don't move as fast as you once did. You've earned the right to spend your days with those who see you as a whole person, not just a source of assistance. And if someone only values you when you're doing something for them, not simply being with them, then they don't truly value you at all. You are not selfish for choosing rest. You are not wrong for drawing the line. You are wise for understanding that love without balance isn't love, it's quiet exhaustion. As we grow older, we begin to notice that not all noise comes from volume. Some of it comes from constant emotional disturbance, the kind that unsettles your peace even in the quietest of rooms. There are people whose lives always seem to swirl in crisis, and every time you visit them, you find yourself swept into their latest emotional storm. You might sit down for a cup of tea expecting a light conversation, but before long you're listening to stories of betrayal, outrage, and who wronged whom again. And although it's not your drama, it begins to feel like it is. These individuals don't simply encounter problems, they often create or amplify them. They thrive in emotional chaos, and when life becomes too calm, they stir the pot, even without realizing it. You may hear endless retellings of conflicts with family, exaggerated arguments with neighbors, or grievances that seem to have no resolution, only repetition. The problem isn't just the stories. They're often told in a way that demands your agreement, your emotional investment, your loyalty. And that's where it gets draining, because once you're pulled in, neutrality is no longer allowed. You're expected to take sides, echo the outrage, and carry a burden that doesn't belong to you. At first, you may feel like you're being a good friend by listening, by offering advice, by staying involved. But over time, you'll notice the cost. Your blood pressure creeps up. Your thoughts linger on their problems even when you're alone. You begin to feel uneasy around others connected to them, unsure of what was said or how you might be perceived. You carry second-hand resentment, even toward people you don't truly know. This kind of emotional entanglement is especially harmful in later life, when stability, clarity, and calm are crucial to your wellness. Just as your body deserves care, so does your spirit, and drama corrodes both. These situations become even more dangerous when the drama magnet resists resolution. They don't want healing, they want a stage. And the more you try to de-escalate or shift toward peace, the more likely they are to see you as disloyal or dismissive. In time, you may even become the next character in their ongoing saga, simply because you tried to step back. And that's why it's so important to recognize this pattern early, not out of judgment, but out of self-protection. The truth is, peace is not something you stumble into. It's something you choose, sometimes through very difficult decisions. Avoiding the drama magnet doesn't mean you lack compassion. It means you understand your limits. You know that real friendship doesn't ask you to pick fights, to carry gossip, or to live inside someone else's conflict. Real connection builds you up, steadies you, lets you breathe. So if someone's presence leaves you feeling like you're walking on eggshells, constantly reacting or defending or agreeing just to keep the calm, it's worth asking, is this person bringing peace into my life or pulling it apart one story at a time? Because you deserve better, and at this stage your well-being must come first. There comes a moment in life when we realize that not all memories bring comfort. Some are wrapped in sorrow, regret, or a longing so strong it dulls the beauty of the present. As we continue this quiet reflection together, let's turn to a type of person whose home often feels stuck in time, not in the warmth of cherished memories, but in the heaviness of all that went wrong. The negative nostalgic isn't always bitter on the surface. In fact, their stories may begin with warmth, reminiscing about the way things used to be, the meals once shared, the music once played. But as the moments pass, you notice the pattern. Every story ends with what was lost, who disappointed them, or why the world today can never measure up. At first, you may sit in silence out of respect. You nod, you listen, you empathize. After, all you too carry stories that shaped you. But with each visit, you begin to feel something subtle shift inside you. Their constant disappointment with the present starts to echo in your own thoughts. You find yourself questioning whether joy still exists in today's world, whether the future holds anything worthwhile, and without meaning to, their hopelessness becomes contagious. It's especially dangerous because it wears the mask of nostalgia. But true nostalgia has tenderness in it. It honors the past while holding space for the present. Negative nostalgia, however, is heavy. It traps both the speaker and the listener in cycles of grief that never heal, only repeat. These individuals often bring up the same family betrayals, the same missed opportunities, the same moments of pain over and over. They don't speak of these things to make peace with them. They speak to keep them alive. And if you spend enough time in that environment, you start breathing in that sadness like secondhand smoke. After 65, when we're navigating change, whether it's retirement, shifting roles in the family, or even just adapting to a quieter pace, hope becomes more than an emotion. It becomes a necessity. It keeps us grounded. It helps us age gracefully. It reminds us that life still holds surprises, still offers beauty, still has chapters left to write. But when surrounded by those who see only what's behind them, who refuse to believe in what remains, your own ability to live fully in the now can begin to fade. You are allowed to love your memories without living inside them. You are allowed to honor the past without dragging it into every conversation. And most importantly, you are allowed to step away from those who make the present feel like a punishment. If someone constantly speaks as if life has already ended, you do not have to join them in that belief. Your story is still unfolding, and it deserves light. Spend your time with those who can still laugh, still hope, still look forward to what the next morning brings. That's not denial, that's wisdom. Because peace comes not from clinging to yesterday, but from opening your heart to today. As we begin this final reflection, let's talk about a kind of relationship that can be difficult to name, but deeply exhausting to experience. The kind where your time, your energy, or your personal space no longer feel like your own. Boundary breakers aren't always loud or aggressive. Often they're people we care about. They might come from within the family or from long-standing friendships. They may even believe they're being loving. But their version of love comes without pause, without limits, and it slowly erodes your ability to breathe freely in your own life. It can look like a grown child who assumes you'll always be available to watch the grandkids, even when you've already said you're tired. It might be a friend who drops by unannounced, sits too long, asks too much, and never seems to sense when you need quiet. It could even be someone who constantly pushes personal questions, makes decisions for you without asking, or assumes that because you're retired you should be at their disposal. At first you might try to accommodate, thinking you're just being kind, but slowly resentment creeps in, not because you don't love these people, but because love without respect starts to feel like pressure. After 65, many of us have spent a lifetime giving time, attention, energy, care. And now, more than ever, we begin to realize how vital it is to conserve what we have left, not because we're less willing, but because we are finally learning the value of peace. The truth is, being constantly available, constantly adjusting yourself to others' needs, wears you down in ways that don't always show on the surface. It affects your sleep, your concentration, and your sense of autonomy. And yet, setting boundaries can still feel unfamiliar, even scary, because we weren't always taught to say no with confidence. But saying no doesn't mean you're unkind. It means you understand that peace is sacred, and that every human being, no matter their age, deserves the right to protect their own emotional and physical space. Boundaries are not walls to push people away. They are fences with gates built to preserve mutual respect. They help you choose when to open your time and when to close it gently. They protect your energy, your dignity, and your ability to age not just longer but better. If someone truly values you, they will learn to honor your no as much as they celebrate your yes. And if they don't, that's not your failure. It's their unwillingness to recognize your humanity. At this stage of life, your time should no longer be measured by how much you can give to others, but by how deeply you can rest, reflect, and reconnect with yourself. You've walked through decades of responsibility. Now is the time to reclaim your right to quiet, to space, to self-respect. And anyone who cannot understand that truth is simply not ready to walk alongside you with the gentleness you've earned. As we close this gentle conversation, I invite you to take a quiet moment to reflect, not just on the people we've talked about today, but on how you feel after spending time with others. After 65, your emotional well-being becomes one of your greatest forms of strength. Peace isn't something you stumble upon. It's something you protect, moment by moment, choice by choice. It's okay to step back from relationships that leave you feeling drained, unheard, or used. That isn't selfish. It's wisdom earned through years of experience. You've walked through enough seasons of giving. Now is the time to nurture your own joy, your own clarity, your own calm. If today's message speaks to your heart, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Share a story or a moment when you chose peace and what changed for you afterward. Because the more we speak honestly, the more we empower others to age with grace, dignity, and the daily wisdom to choose themselves.